let's talk about streams and how streams flow. And let's begin by talking about how streams are created. So if we get precipitation in an area, it might just infiltrate into the ground. But especially if we're in an area where there's not vegetation, where there aren't trees and grasses or other kind of land cover in order to cover the ground, if we just have bare soil, we might start getting the water flowing across that area as a sheet. We call that sheet flow. And then eventually, if there's slightly lower areas, it might start a greater area might start draining into that and just create these little indentations in the grounds called rills, which as they get deeper are called gullies. And finally, these gullies might lead into a stream. So let's take a look at each one of these components now. Let's start with sheet flow. So sheet flow, S-H-E-E-T-F-L-O-W, sheet flow, is just when the water is flowing across the land. And if you've ever had to get back to your car after a heavy rain and there's just no place to walk without getting your shoes wet, that's sheet flow. So the water is just coming across the land. Happens much more often if there's no vegetation, if the soil is bare, or if it's paved or something like that, of course, that's where we would expect to find sheet flow. But as that flows downstream, or as that flows downhill, eventually the water might start to find these slightly lower areas in the ground. And once they find these lower areas, those areas tend to get lower still. And this is because of erosion. But these little kind of rivulets that we see in this picture here, these would be called rills, R-I-L-L-S. And it just means little kind of areas where the water is starting to flow into these small little channels, kind of these half pipes in the ground. And these are not big. These are something that could easily be stepped over. But as that erosion process continues and as more of these rills come together, they feed into each other, then we might start getting into something like this, which we would call gullies, G-U-L-L-I-E-S. And these gullies are much deeper. You can no longer step across these. You might not even be able to jump across these. Once again, they can occur where there is vegetation, but they more often occur when there is not a lot of vegetation to hold the soil in place. You can see in this picture to the right that probably part of the contribution to the gullies forming in this area was that this patch of land was deforested. So the trees were taken out, they're no longer holding the soil in place, and it's more likely that these gullies will form. And sometimes gullies can be seasonal. This is a farm where during the summertime, they're planting a crop that's helping to hold the soil in place. But looking at that same area in the winter, these gullies can form because the vegetation is no longer there. And farmers are very aware of this. They like to keep their soil where it is because that's what they depend on for their livelihood. And sometimes they plant crops during the winter, even if they're not profitable, just to hold their soil in place so these gullies do not form. Eventually, though, these gullies feed into what we would call a stream, which might feed into a river, which is bigger than a stream typically. And this is kind of what we're used to seeing, right? This area where it's channelized, it's in a particular linear area, and it's eroding down into the ground in this area. It's the lowest thing around. All these hills on either side of it are higher than this particular area, and streams tend to feed into rivers, and rivers tend to feed into larger rivers. We would call this one stream here a tributary, T-R-I-B-U-T-A-R-Y, of this larger river that is flowing into.